Have you ever been so impacted by something that it leaves no doubt as to what helped shape you? Welcome to The Blind Impact, a podcast where we talk about and uncover those moments. Some funny, some sad, but it's not always tragic. I hope you'll stay for a while. Hi, Dr. Qureshi.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Oh no, just okay? That doesn't sound good.
Yeah, I'm alone with the baby, so
Oh dear.
it's a challenge.
Is there anything that you would like to let the audience know about who you are, aside from your story?
I'm 29 years old. I'm a family medicine resident in Texas, which means that I'm done with medical school. I have my degree and everything, and I'm training underneath more experienced doctors. And for family medicine, that's a 3-year process, and I'm in my second year. So after June 30th of next year, I will be an independent practicing physician out in the community.
Yay, that's exciting. That's very exciting. I mean, it's a nice accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I just feels like I'm still running on the hamster wheel, but
Yeah.
maybe younger me would be pretty excited about it.
Oh, well, I mean, 29, that's not all old.
I
Like, I don't
feel
know.
it.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I could imagine, I don't know, like where you are as far as like challenging yourself and setting specific goals for yourself, but that's definitely not old. And then within a year, you're gonna be you're gonna be completed with your program. So that's definitely a pat on the back for sure. Okay, well, Dr. Karashi, what is your story today? What are you talking about?
So I think I'll talk about what led me to medicine and what led me to kind of the path that I'm ended up on, just because at one point it was definitely a toss up. So
Okay.
I didn't necessarily want to be a doctor at the front end, especially because my dad specifically was constantly like, "Oh yeah, my daughter's gonna be a doctor," and he would just like tell anybody willing to listen all the time since I was like born. Um, so in true teenage fashion, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do anything but that." So throughout college, I was pre PA because I was like, I'll just pick that path. It's much shorter, less training, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I was doing. Um, and I ended up shadowing a PA and getting on a team with other physicians.
Okay.
And I saw and it was a surgeon. She was a trauma surgeon. She was probably a couple years older than I am now. She was like 80, like not 80, sorry, 8 months pregnant with her second child, just wobbling up and down the stairs. And she really like questioned me, like, why do you want to do this? And what goals do you have for yourself? And through that conversation, I decided to take the MCAT and apply to med school. Um, and I did this right after I graduated college. So if you know anything about like timing and stuff, it means that I'll be taking a gap year, which was
Mhm.
fine with me. I had some loans, I wanted to pay them off. So
Mhm.
I took the MCAT, I applied to med schools, but I was very like picky. So I did not apply outside of Texas. I was like, you know what? If it's meant to be, it's gonna happen here, and I'm not gonna move out of the state. Um, and then eventually I did get an interview and I got accepted and I got a letter saying that I'm accepted to med school 20 minutes from my parents' house, which is exactly the one I wanted. Um,
Okay.
and around the same time, I'm still going back and forth. Like, do I still want to do this? Do I still want to commit to this journey? Because it really is during this time, I'm South Asian, so it's very common for family members to try to set you up and get you married. I was single, so
Mhm.
my mom was kind of like putting it out there, and there was a guy that she had me talking to in California, never seen this man in my life, but we were just talking kind of back and forth and trying to see if we liked each other, if we were compatible and all those things. And he was a good guy, and I enjoyed having conversations with him, and I we kind of became friends throughout this kind of back and forth talking. He also wanted to go to med school, so he tried and he wasn't able to, so he definitely understood the decision. Um, and he had just gotten a job out in California, and he had no way to change that. He really couldn't move to Texas at that time. So I was kind of put in a position of if I wanted to pursue this thing with him, I'd be moving to California and potentially, restarting the process of getting into med school or whatever it may be. Or, doing something else. Or I could stay where I am with my parents and go to med school and become a doctor.
Mhm.
Um, and that was a heavy decision for me. Just so happened that my family and we were going to pilgrimage. So we're Muslim, and we go to, or we try to go to Saudi Arabia and visit the cities of Mecca and Medina, and as a form of pilgrimage and worship. And while I was there, my kind of goal was to make this decision, and I felt like picking the guy and moving to California and getting married and all those things was the easy choice. I felt that that was the dream, right? Like, you are a little kid, you dream of finding your guy, of getting married and having this wedding and building a family, and I definitely bought into that dream for sure. And I wanted that a lot. And I know my family wanted that for me as well, and I knew that they were actually hoping I made that decision over the decision to pursue more education, even though my parents had harped like, oh yeah, you're going to be a doctor, go to med school, the stuff. Once I was accepted and they realized how long of a process it is and the sacrifices involved, they were like, how about don't do that,
Mhm.
and instead here's this other option. um, so I felt like the easy decision was to do that, and the difficult decision was to pursue medicine and go to medical school and everything that comes along with that. So while I was there, and I was really just like focused in on this goal of figuring out what the right choice is, and I honestly was leading towards just going off and getting married to this guy in California. He seems great. Um, and one of the days, I get there, and the mosque is huge, and you have people from all over the world, all different countries coming and praying there. We were sitting in the mosque, me, my sister, my mom, and I saw this lady, and she just had, I guess she had pain in her feet. Um, she just kind of sitting there massaging her feet, and kind of, you can tell, just super achy, sore.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'd really like to help her. And my mom was like, hey, do something about her feet, because and the background is of my mom wanting me to touch a random people's feet is part of applying for med school. I shadowed somebody that was a DO. I am a DO. And that means we do manipulative medicine, which is kind of like uh, manipulating, articulating body parts to with the end goal of something, right? And the end goal is usually pain relief. So I shadowed a guy, and that's all he did. He just did OMT, and I actually had him treat my feet because I was a
Mhm.
gymnast and I've always had pain. Um, and he did it while I was on the rotation, and I felt like a load had been lifted off of my feet, and I just felt a million times lighter. So I learned that from him. I learned the technique. Um, And so my mom was like, do something for her. And reluctantly, I went over to this lady who did not speak a lick of English or Urdu, the language I speak. I think she was maybe Albanian or something like that. Or it was, yeah, maybe. And I treated her feet similar to how the other doctor treated mine. And she was so grateful in all the words that she could come up with to express how grateful she was. And she's blessing me and putting her hand on my head. And I could see that she felt better. And I felt really good about that. I felt really good about giving her that pain relief. Um, and that feeling kind of sunk into me. And I felt like I needed to make the hard decision, that there are lots of people out there that need help. And, if I wasn't there that day sitting next to that lady, with the knowledge that I had learned at some point, she would still kind of be rubbing her feet and in pain. And I was able to, with my little experience, make it a little bit better for her and potentially giving her a good day
Hmm.
that day. So I just felt like it almost felt like a pit in my stomach, like, oh man, like I gotta pick this. This is my answer. Like I have to make this decision. And and that's kind of the story. I came back and I said yes. I accepted my admission to medical school, and here we are.
Here we are. Okay. That's definitely a way to recap an entire, I'm sure, not just a month or two's journey. I definitely appreciate the preciseness of it. But can we rewind a little bit and can we explain what a DO is?
Yeah, it's a doctor of osteopathy. So you go to the doctor and there's two different doctors. There's MD and there's DO. Most people when they go to the doctor think that everyone's an MD, medical doctor of um, it's allopathy versus osteopathy. And back in the day when osteopathy was becoming a thing, there was an MD that decided that disease is not in isolation to organs or like specific things like that. He believed in kind of a holistic thing that health is all about mind, body, and soul. Um, and so he discovered osteopathy and the different tenets of practicing that way. And honestly, medicine has evolved to where all doctors, MD and DO, are taught holistic medicine, and that's the route that medicine is going. So, but there still is a distinction in the letters that are used because there were different entities created, like the American Academy of Osteopathy was created kind of as a separate entity from allopathic medicine. And recently, a lot of that stuff is being kind of meshed together. Our exams are different, but there's conversation about even merging those and just having a short um, optional exam to get the extra kind of DO manipulation training or certification, you could say.
Wow. Okay. Well, I definitely can't say that you are unfamiliar with what you're talking about. And my second question that was discovered throughout the your beginning conversation was you said the lady was possibly Albanian and she didn't speak your language. What is your particular language that you
Uh, I,
couldn't communicate?
I speak Urdu.
Oh, okay. And what what exactly is that?
So it's essentially like the national language of Pakistan, which is where I'm
Oh,
from. I moved here when I was like 7-ish.
okay. Wow. And you learned that, I guess, maybe first?
Yeah, you could say that. I went to an American-based school when I was there, so you know, I grew up learning and uh, kind of reading and writing English and Urdu kind of simultaneously. Um,
Mm.
so I would say English is my second language, but it's not that like I came here and I didn't know anything. Like
Right,
I'd been going to
right.
school and stuff.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. I mean, to be at the developmental stage and learning both languages at the same time, pretty much. That's amazing. But you doesn't sound like you feel any way about it either way, one way or the other.
No,
So,
I think it's honestly very common outside of the
uh-huh.
United States for
Y-
kids to grow up with multiple languages, and that's just the norm. Like in the house, there's multiple languages, and in school, there, you know, at least two languages that they practice in.
Wow. Well, that's a bit of information I was not aware of. I do think we should. I think that even though this is America, I feel like it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to start practicing other languages that the parents may not speak, right? But if they can start to learn some of those languages and teach their children, that I think we could be a little better off, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Personal opinions. Okay, so we're at the point now where you've made a decision, you've accepted your your um your opportunity for med school, and your dad, because he seems to have been like the catalyst, I think, for your path one way or the other. Do you feel like he was proud of your decision?
Like I like I said, I think that my dad really liked the idea of his daughter becoming a doctor, and
Mm-hmm.
none of my family is in medicine, honestly, so they don't really
Mm-hmm.
know. And it wasn't until, you know, I got into school and he realized all the steps it takes to kind of be done with it, that he was like kind of encouraging me to reconsider.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, he wants me to have a good life. You know, that's his goal. His goal isn't necessarily to put me in a certain box. It's for me to live well and be
Mm-hmm.
happy, and he thought maybe that being a doctor wouldn't give me that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely a lot of pressure being a parent, and I think a lot more pressure being a dad, because you are, as his daughter, definitely still under their, I guess, like covering, or protection, and so they feel very heavily responsible for the outcome. And I think that's probably pretty easily translated throughout the continent, I believe. Um, what about your mom?
My mom's honestly super amazing. She's supportive of whatever I want. So, you know, whenever I was like, you know, I want to do this other thing, she was just like, okay, cool. Sounds good. How can I help? And when I shifted over to a doctor, I think she was also reluctant, the same way my dad was. She was like, you know, don't you want to just, because, you know, she went to high school, she started college, she got married, she dropped out the first chance she got, um, because she was dyslexic and she didn't know that at the time. And she was just like, yeah, school is hard. I'm not a fan.
Hmm.
Um, and she, of course, wanted me to have like the choice and opportunities to do whatever I want. But at the same time, she was happy with her decision to kind of get married and start a family, and she finds a lot of joy and happiness in those things, so she felt that I may as well.
Hmm.
And she didn't push me anyways, but she did tell me to kind of think about it a little bit harder.
Wow. That's so interesting. And as traditional as it sounds like your parents are, there seems to be a little bit of non-traditional aspect there when it comes to what they thought they wanted for you, right? Because, and if I'm wrong, please let me know, but I don't think that it's some, like, the parents don't aren't really willing to backpedal, right, on what they have set out for their kids. And it's kind of like, if they say this is what I want for you to do, then it's not really an option for you. So get on your parents definitely for that, because I can't imagine that was the easiest decision.
Yeah, I think more than my parents, my grandmother was the most instrumental in that. She was very young when she left her family's house. She was maybe 16, I think, when she got married and moved away. Um, and she was the biggest proponent of, Sana should have the opportunity to get an education and have her own career in her own life. And my grandfather was also like very much like, times have changed, and women need their own identities in their lives and careers. So I think it was really my grandparents that
Ooh.
pushed my parents to have those thoughts, because I want to say my parents were probably a little bit more traditional in what they wanted for me, if it wasn't for my grandparents supporting me.
Wow, I love that. Jeez. And that sounds about exactly how grandparents are, I think, expected to behave. They they're always very heavily advocating for the grandkids, and it's usually opposite of whatever the parents are wanting. So do you feel like with the decisions that you made to not remain in California and become married, do you feel like that's your do you feel happiest about that decision?
I think it was a good decision. I think it was meant
Mhm.
to be. I'm a little bit biased now. I met my
Oh.
husband in medical school. I'm married. I have a baby. I wouldn't want a different outcome. Um,
Mhm.
so I think uh, I think it was definitely the right decision for me, because I was kind of meant to walk this life.
Yeah, that sounds like you got a lot of confidence in saying that. So that's uplifting, especially as a woman, and being able to be out there and making those decisions and to be content with it despite maybe somebody else's opinion of it, or feelings on the matter. So I'm definitely very happy to hear what your decisions were. And do you feel like after having made those decisions, though, did you see like an effect on your whole family?
I think so. I think maybe the bar was a little bit more raised for my siblings.
Mhm.
They probably hated me for that. Um, like, well, your sister's gonna be a doctor. Y'all. So I think it was a little bit difficult, honestly, for my sister,
Okay.
just because I was born first. I did everything first, just because I was older. I talked first, I walked first, I did all this stuff, and my sister's entire life was kind of living in that shadow of like, oh,
Mhm.
you should be like your sister. And the more they kind of pushed that on her, the more she pushed away from
Mhm.
it. So whenever I chose to become a doctor, and I was able to pursue that decision. My parents really looked to her to follow in my footsteps, and she probably felt a little bit obligated to pursue the same path. Um, and I feel like that wasn't fair, because that's
Mhm.
not what she wanted. Um, and now she does her own thing, so I'm happy for her. But I do feel very guilty about likely all the time that she had kind of been pushed and had certain expectations put on her that weren't really for her.
Mhm. Yeah. She's your only sibling?
No, I have two brothers, but
Oh,
they're
okay.
younger. I'm the
Okay.
oldest. I don't think it affected my brothers too much. I think there was enough of an age gap where um,
Sure.
it wasn't as relevant.
Right. Yeah. Well, I can definitely can say that I understand the feeling of the guilt, and being the oldest, you do have a little bit. There is a more you shoulder a lot more responsibility, right? A lot more exemplary things throughout your life, and I think it helps the parents in parenting to have the older child setting these examples, because it more or less maybe like lessens the some of those responsibilities for them. Not to say like they're putting parenting on the older siblings, but it does make it a little bit easier to not, I think, have to be repetitive and what the expectations are for their own children. And I think in doing that, they don't understand how much they are actually impacting the siblings that follow and the siblings that come first. And it's a lot of weight to bear, but I don't think that you should feel guilty for that, anymore. So good to your sister for doing her own thing, breaking that breaking that box, because it's not easy. It's not definitely not easy out there,
Yeah.
Definitely not easy. But the one more question that I have before I let you go, because I know the baby's up and active, but is there anything about your overall experience, right? Having gone to Saudi Arabia for the pilgrimage, and having encountered the woman, and having the decisions for California or medical school here, is there anything about any of that you would have changed?
I don't know. It's so hard to say that,
Mm-hmm.
I would have changed this or I would have changed that just because um, I don't know how much that would have affected where I am now. Um, there's definitely many times when I'm up at 5 in the morning and running to the hospital or tired like beyond belief that I'm like, you know what, maybe I should have just taken the other route.
Mm-hmm.
I'd potentially be happier, well rested, maybe feel younger. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel that way not infrequently,
Mm-hmm.
but if I really am honest with myself and really look at the bigger picture, um, I think everything had to happen the way it happened for
Mm-hmm.
it to end up in this result. Um, I had to, say no to that guy to likely have the motivation to work hard and be successful in med school because I knew what I gave up. Um, I knew
Mm-hmm.
the sacrifices I had made. So kind of that motivation to, you know, it's like a psychological fallacy where you have put so much time and work into something and it makes you feel like it's like the sunken cost theory. You have put so much into this, it has to work, because all of that work will be for nothing. And I think part of it was that part of it was feeling like, I'd given up too much to be here, so I had to make sure that I was able to follow through and be successful in it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. It's absolutely fair. And it seems seems such like something that a woman would do, right? Because we we are no strangers to adversity, for
Sure.
sure.
Yeah.
And I think in some way we are definitely, and this is not downplaying men or any of that, but I think we do understand at moments in our life what it takes to achieve things that typically wouldn't take a male as much to be able to achieve. So you were doing awesome, and I definitely appreciate you taking the time with your small baby to talk to me, and to kind of enlighten the audience on what it took for you to become a doctor. So you definitely keep pushing, and I appreciate it. And to be sure that I'm pronouncing your name correctly, could you say it?
Qureshi.
Okay, okay. And I said Karashi at the beginning. Okay, so Karashi, and you didn't even correct me. Okay, so
At this point, you can call me anything. It's close enough. I'm happy.
well, I want to say it right. So okay, so Qureshi, Dr. Qureshi. Okay. Well, is if there's anything else, is there anything else that you would like to add in closing here?
I just want to say, I am coming across very sure of my decisions and all this stuff, and I promise you on a daily basis that's really not the case. Very often, there's a lot of, did I do the right thing? Is this, the right path? But at the end of the day, I know that you can't live like that, and I think that's a learning point for everybody. You can't live with the thought that, if I did this differently, then this would be the case. Because the truth is, you don't know, um,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know what needed to happen to get you where you need to go, and you don't know the end of it. Because as long as you're alive, there's more to the story.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of that it will be eventually discovered. And I think as long as you allow yourself to discover that, then I think it'll maybe take away a little bit more of the uncertainty, or like you said, like the what ifs and all that. Because at the end of the day, I don't know that it much matters, especially if you're already on a trajectory, And I can't imagine you want to restart everything, you know. But there's
Mhm.
always the option of being a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah,
So,
I keep mentioning that to my husband. I'm like, hey, you'll finish one day. I could stay home, you
uh-huh.
teach the kids. A kid right now, and he's just like, absolutely not. He's like, you worked way too hard to get here, and I'm like, yeah, but I worked hard. So if
Right.
I'm okay with it, he's like, you're gonna get bored, and I'm like, that may be true, but we won't know until you let me do it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that that'll happen, because you can pretty much believe that that's a thought that's on his mind at the very forefront, probably. So, I'll be excited for you either way. And I know you mentioned kids, so that means that you plan on having more
I
children.
don't know. Honestly, I always wanted maybe three or so, but
Okay.
my baby is a tough one. He
Yeah.
has been my life's greatest challenge. I promise you, med school is nothing compared to what he offers us. So, but I don't want him to kind of grow up without a sibling. So,
Mhm.
it's just, we'll see how I feel. Right now, it's an
Mhm.
absolute no. But I'm hoping that I get enough amnesia about the rough parts to repeat it.
You will. You will.
Yeah, that's what my mom says. She's like, you'll forget
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, you will. And soon enough, you'll have baby fever, and you'll be at 3 before you know it. So, it's an experience that I am all too familiar with on this side. So, we've seen it, but I definitely don't want to hold you up. And like I say, I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And if there isn't anything else that you'd like to add, then we're gonna wrap it up here, Dr.
No, I
Qureshi.
think we can wrap up. He's getting fussy.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up. Hey guys, this has been the Blind Impact. Today's guest is Dr. Qureshi. And if you guys have a story that you'd like to add, to give, talk about, you're more than welcome to email me at theblindimpact@gmail.com. And again, thank you, Dr. Qureshi, so much for your time. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of The Blind Impact. If you like the show, please rate, subscribe, review, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have a story you'd like to tell, please email me at theblindimpact@gmail.com. Or if you have a story you'd like to have read here by me, please include those details in the email or the voice message. Thank y'all, and remember, it's not always tragic.